I think this one's kind of underrated, but tip number 3 is to create a payoff timeline. And you know, I think people kind of forget this tip because they look at their debt and they say, all right, this is going to be the plan. You know, like I got my budget in place. This is my plan. I'm going to focus on these debts here. But I think the accountability piece kicks in when you can actually say, all right, from my budget, I know I can put an extra $500 a month towards my debt. Now I should put that into like a little equation. All right, I have this much debt left. Here's how much I can throw at it per month. How many months should it take me roughly to pay off? Because that's going to help keep you accountable. And then like, if you actually have a timeline, you can start to project that into the future and plan for the future. If you know it's going to take me, 18 months to get out of debt, what do I want to be doing after that? In a year and a half, what am I going to start focusing on next? And then if I know now that I can use this money to pay off debt, I can, like I said, you can put that towards the next goal. So I don't know. I think creating a payoff timeline, like that to me is such a big one because I like for people to see, I like them to see like, hey, if you just keep doing things the way you're doing them now, it's going to take you 5 years to get out of debt. If we move some things around, it could take you 2 years. And then they start to build up that motivation of like, all right, well, if I, drive Uber Eats at night, or I pick up a second shift, or I work overtime, like now I'm going to be actually be able to get out of debt in a year. So I think it's a huge part to like the motivation and the level of confidence when it comes to getting out of debt.
Yeah. And I will say this is a piece to my journey that I sort of missed, honestly. I did, the first step of, taking on no more debt. That was golden for me. Creating the plan of the debt snowball. Perfect. But the payoff timeline was actually something that I neglected during my journey. It was like at the very end, whenever I realized that like I could actually put this into like a calculator and figure it out. I just don't think I had the knowledge. There's a really cool tool out there. It's totally free. It's a debt payoff calculator. Just Google debt payoff calculator by Vertex 42, I think. That's like a really cool tool that you can do like Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets. But you can put in like your different debts, the interest rates, how much you're paying on it, and then how much you're going to snowball, like that extra amount of money that you can put towards them every month. And it'll literally give you a date, a month and date that you'll actually be able to pay all those off. So that is something super important. But like I said, I didn't do this. I think I was just confused because I was like, well, I know my debts are still accumulating interest, so I don't know what this is going to look like. My student loans at the time, in interest alone, I was paying like $4,000 like for the first year, I think, of my journey. So I was like, I don't know how that's going to translate to me getting to be able to pay this off, right? So for me, I didn't calculate this till the very end whenever I found that calculator, and because my student loans were at 0%. So then I was able to do it kind of on my own. But yeah, this is a piece that I think a lot of people miss. And I think, the first two are great, but this one actually gives you like the broad view of like, oh, I can actually get this done super quick, and I can manipulate these numbers to be able to pay it off faster. So yeah, this is definitely an underrated tip here.
Yeah. And what you said, that second part of manipulating the numbers, like sometimes, I'll show someone this calculator, we'll put in all their information, and they see like, oh man, it's going to take me, 3 years to get out of debt. And that's a long time to be stuck in like this tight budget, to be throwing all your extra money towards debt, working an extra job, whatever it is. But the cool part is when you start to, like you said, manipulate those numbers and you show them, all right, hey, if we can squeeze a little bit more out of the budget by cutting expenses, or if, you guys can sacrifice a little bit more by working, a few extra hours or whatever it is, now you can cut that down to 2 years or a year and a half. And so it shortens the amount it shortens the length that you need to sacrifice for. Yeah, you might need to sacrifice a little bit harder, but in my mind, like I'm always a big believer, like I would rather the pain be greater for less amount of time than the pain be moderate for a really long time. To me, I'm like, let's just get it over with, and I find that can be motivating for a lot of people too, where it's like, hey, I don't want this to take 3 years. Cool. Then what can we actually start doing? And that's where the motivation starts to build up there.
Yeah. And I think people are really surprised, even if you put in like a couple $100 extra, which a lot of people can find in their budget if they're really spending on things they don't need to be. If you put a few $100 extra in like the debt snowball calculation or the debt payoff calculator, you'd be surprised how many months, sometimes even a year, that it'll cut off the overall timeline of your debt payoff. So it's definitely something to look at as you're going through this journey, because I think, it might feel like a long time, like, oh, here I have this plan to pay off this debt, but I don't know how long it's going to take me. It's going to be forever. But then you look at the calculator and you're like, oh, if I paid an extra $200 a month, which I can do, then I'm going to pay this off like months sooner. And it's like so much more motivating in that sense.
100%. I think that's a huge part of it. And for me, it's also just like the accountability part. Like I mentioned in the beginning, like if you know, according to this calculator, right, if you plug in all the numbers, if I can do this in a year, let's just say 12 months from now, like if I don't, why didn't I do that? You know, or on the flip side of that, what do I need to continue reinforcing in my spending behavior and in just what I'm doing on a daily basis? Maybe that's just maybe a simple thing. Like I was just talking to someone today. It's like, you got to just pack a lunch and bring it to work every single day, because, you know, going down to the little shop right outside of your work and spending $20 a day on getting a lunch with all your friends. Like, I know that that's fun, but that's going to make this journey take so much longer. And if you can cut out the little things like that, like that's where the accountability piece comes in with doing something like this, because you can see this is how long it should take me if I stick to a plan.
Yeah, for sure. Whenever I used to like post on Instagram a lot more, I was doing a series where people would actually like fill out a Google form and give me like all their numbers, and I would put it into the calculator for them and like create a reel and say like when their debt payoff journey would be, or their debt like payoff date would be. And they were super excited because they never, again, like I think people have like the knowledge, like the plan they need to follow, but they often don't have the timeline. So yeah, it's super cool to see like when your actual date is going to be. The information, opinions, and recommendations provided on this podcast are for entertainment purposes only and do not constitute professional financial advice. Any financial decisions you make based on the content of this podcast are your responsibility. We strongly recommend consulting with a licensed financial advisor or other qualified professional before making any significant financial decisions. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that we are not liable for any financial outcomes.